You know, they found a terrorist, and I don't mean they found him at the border. They were all, whoa, this is a terrorist. No. They found him at the border, and then he was allowed to roam free within the borders of the United States of America for a year, before they finally tracked him down again. You might have been pumping gas at the gas station right next to somebody who would like to chop your head off on video. And so that stuff happens, and it makes people look around and say, oh my gosh, how could that happen? How could they not catch him? When we look at what's happening overseas right now, well, why are we not keeping Iran in check? Oh, China's going crazy. Why aren't we keeping China in check? People look around and they ask, why isn't the government doing something? Why isn't the Biden administration doing something? Why aren't they attacking? We have enemies here on our southern border and enemies on there and enemies there. Why aren't they attacking our enemies? Well, they are. Except you think you have different enemies than they do. You see, you are correct in who the enemies of America truly are. But for the people who run the government, president, FBI, DHS, CIA, the people who run the national security apparatus of America, the reason they're not interested in terrorists on the southern border is, to them, the terrorist is you.
From a terrorism perspective, I think domestic violent extremism is one of the greatest terrorism-related threats that we face.
In the FBI's view, the top domestic violent extremist threat comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocated for the superiority of the white race.
Why didn't the FBI track down a terrorist, a dangerous terrorist who was roaming here for a year? Well, the FBI, they only have so much time. They only have so much manpower. They have to tackle the true terrorists of this nation, at least in their eyes, terrorists who pray outside of abortion clinics. Those people, 50 to 70, arrested, convicted, facing up to 11 years in federal prison. The federal government that allows terrorists to roam free. They allow Antifa, Black Lives Matter, street animals to loot, burn, shoot in this country, cities like Seattle and others. They actually are paying millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter street animals. Yet here in the United States of America, it is pro-lifers who read Bible verses and sing worship songs who are hunted down by the FBI like Paul Vaughn was here in this video.
But if you're not going to let me, then I'll just...
No, I want to know why you were banging on my door with a gun. You're not going to tell me anything?
I tried.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
You did not try. Can I have your name? You're not going to give me your name? You're not going to give me any information?
Pretty sobering view of where we are as a nation, no? The people who run this country, and it's not unique to a president or a senator or a professor or a media mogul or the people who run our institutions. They are so different from you morally. They are so different on the inside that, and I've used this example before, it's going to sound weird, but I want you to picture if I could dissect you and I could actually look at your soul, right? You're a human being and you have a soul, and I could open you up and look at it, right? You with me? If I could do that to you, and then I could do that to them, one of the people who run the country, it would look like two different things, because these people are different than you on a deeply visceral level. Your moral code, your values, they don't share any of them. If anything, I wouldn't find a soul inside of them. 3 U.S. service members just died. This is the press secretary's statement, the press secretary of the United States of America.
What I will say, obviously our deepest condolences go out, and our heartfelt condolences go out to the families who lost three folks who are military folks, who are brave, who are always fighting, who are fighting on behalf of this administration, of the American people. Obviously, more importantly, we lost those souls.
Fighting on behalf of this administration. I need to say something again. And it's really, really important that we understand just how evil and soulless these people are. When you heard 3 service members died, you probably bowed your head and prayed. Maybe you picked up your phone, texted a buddy, hey, did you see that? Maybe you talked to your husband, your wife about it. But it stirred something in you. It's sad, right? The people who run our country, they don't feel any of that. None of it. It's not in them. It's not in them at all. Everything for these dirty communists, everything is just about power. Getting it, keeping it, rewarding your friends, punishing your enemies. There is no good, bad, sad. There's none of that inside of these people. The military, how could you give a statement so cold about the military? She made it political. They're serving this administration. How could you do that? Well, again, they don't look at the military like you or I look at the military. To them, the military and everyone in it, they're just playthings. They're just pawns to be used. And they don't want to be inconvenienced by those pawns. They're just pawns. Speaking of don't want to be inconvenienced, do I need to remind you? Do I need to remind you what the President of the United States of America did when he went and met the families of 13 dead troops coming back from Afghanistan? There's pictures famous, and the video of all this stuff is famous, but there's a reason behind this.
Sergeant Nicole G., who was one of the 2 female Marines who were killed among the 13, she was the one who posted that Instagram post holding the baby saying, "I love my job," just a few days ago.
Why would you do that? You know, Joe Biden, to give him credit, his brain is so rotted out with dementia that he's not as good as he used to be at hiding what he really feels. Why would you go meet these families, these grieving families, your daughter, your baby girl, your son, he's laying there in a coffin, and you're sitting there checking your watch, got someplace to be. Remember, they testified, all of them, that he did it repeatedly. It wasn't a one-off. It was over and over again. Oh my gosh, how much longer? Why would you do that? Again, if you could open him up and look in his soul, you wouldn't even recognize it as human. Why would he check his watch? Why does he have to be inconvenienced by these dead troops? Dead troops are just something for him to use. He doesn't want to be there. He's bored. It's hot out. I want to go get some ice cream. Again, what's inside of these people, it's nothing like what's inside of you. And that brings me to one final point here. There's a state rep in Texas echoing what we are hearing far too often in this country, from the president on down. His name's Gene Wu, but I don't want to single out Gene Wu, who's just a moron. He said this, quote, "It's all fun and games," talking about Texas. "It's all fun and games until someone eats a drone-fired Hellfire missile." This comes on the heels of Joe Biden. Once again, he loves this line. He repeats this line a lot. Many Democrats do. Comes on the heels of Joe Biden threatening the American people with airstrikes.
I didn't see a whole lot of patriots that are out there walking around making sure that we have these weapons. Well, and if you really want to worry about the government, you need an F-16.
These people, why do you think they all talk about this now? Eric Swalwell, oh, you have nukes? We got nukes. Gene Wu, I'll send a Hellfire missile, President of the United States of America. You got F-16s? I do. Why has this become a mainstream Democrat talking point? Because they think about it. And behind closed doors, they talk about it. And boy, is that pretty revealing, isn't it? Sit there and digest what it means that now Democrats, top to bottom, behind closed doors, talk about that military sending it after you. The border thing's a big old mess. Supreme Court, the federal government fighting with Texas putting up more razor wire, this border patrol this and this border patrol that, and it's really, really bad. Federal government has opened up the southern border. They have done this on purpose. Remember, they didn't screw it up. It's a central part of the communist plan to collapse America, flood the country with illegals. This is the Cloward-Piven strategy. It's been around since the 60s. They're just perfecting it now. All right, so they need the border open. Texas needs the border closed. We cannot withstand this without end. All right, so there's a big fight. And now that there's a conflict, kind of an argument between the federal government and one of the states, a lot of people are talking about civil war this and civil war that. Is there going to be a civil war?
What is this going to turn into, a civil war? I mean, you've got the Texas rights versus federal rights, both sides with guns.
And we believe constitutionally we are right. We have a right to defend our citizens. We have a right to defend this country.
All right? Civil war. I hear that a lot. Civil war. Is there going to be a civil war? Okay. Before we start talking about anything as horrible, unspeakably horrible as a civil war, I feel like we need to dig into something. I feel like we need to dig into the traitors on our own side, because we need to get them out. So how do these people get into office? I mean, James Lankford is out there right now trying to negotiate a bill that would allow millions more illegals in before anybody even deports anybody. Again, Senator Naked Kendall, you can put it up again, producer. This is a picture of James Lankford. A lot of people don't realize this is actually what he looks like. But you see, that's Senator Lankford right there. And he's negotiating with Democrats as we speak to amnesty a bunch of illegals and to prevent the United States of America from deporting people until 1.8 million more come in. So it's crazy, right? It's crazy. And he's out there, trying to make up excuses. Oh, it's just because it's an election year why people don't like it.
It is interesting. Republicans 4 months ago would not give funding for Ukraine, for Israel, and for our southern border because we demanded changes in policy. So we actually locked arms together and said, we're not going to give you money for this. We want a change in law. And now it's interesting, a few months later, when we're finally getting to the end, they're like, oh, just kidding. I actually don't want a change in law because it's a presidential election year.
So how did we end up with a senator like this? There has to be a story behind this, right? And the other senators with him, I mean, the Mitch McConnells and the John Cornyn's and the Mitt Romneys. How are these guys betraying us all the time? There have to be some evil powers behind them. Well, we here on I'm Right, we did some digging into this. We wanted to know, how are these people in power? How did we end up on our side with these people who are knifing us in the back? So, look, you remember James Lankford back when St. George Floyd died? You remember when he went to the television set and he started talking about how we needed to give in to the communist demands and start changing the name of military bases? You remember this?
We are also seeing now efforts to rename military bases across the country. The Senate Armed Services Committee voted on that. This week we've seen leading voices like General David Petraeus saying it's time to stop having military bases named after Confederate generals like Braxton Bragg. Is it time?
I do, actually. I think the right way to be able to do this is to be able to have a study, to be able to look at where the name come from, what do we need to have to be able to take a serious look at it, and then to be able to transition. There are lots of great leaders, military leaders that are around the country that are modern leaders that we can continue to be able to honor.
Yeah, now they're removing statues of Thomas Jefferson because Senator Naked Kendall decided to throw blood in the water for the sharks. It was never about the Confederacy or anything like that. It was just about destroying America's history. So how does this guy stay in office? Well, like I said, we did some digging into it and we found why. And it's ugly. You ready for this? After that, after he went on television and did all that, he actually had a primary in the, let me check my numbers again. Yeah, very red state of Oklahoma. He had a primary. And in red Oklahoma, James Lankford got 64% of the primary vote. Wasn't even close. The GOP primary voter in red Oklahoma. He's not in Maine. He's not in New Hampshire. In red Oklahoma, the GOP primary voter ran to the polls to vote Senator Naked Kendall back into office. Oh, don't think it's just you, Oklahoma. Who is the power behind these men? Why can't we get them out of office? I live in red Texas. They always say that, right? Red Texas. In fact, I see all these Texans out there and they're, come and take it. We've had enough. We're standing up to you. And then John Cornyn's doing Texans wrong. But how is John Cornyn still in office from red Texas? I'm glad you asked. His last primary, I have the results right here. He got 76% of the GOP primary voters vote in red Texas. Come and take it. What's that? There's a primary election? Go, John! You see, I can keep going. Should I keep going? I think I will. Mitch McConnell, because this is all Mitch McConnell's idea. He's the one who told Senator Naked Kendall, go get a border deal going, arrange a border deal. We need to do this amnesty plan. We got to do it before Trump's in office. And you're mad about that, right? I'm mad about that. Gosh, Mitch McConnell sucks. How horrible is that? Oh, well, I found why he's in office. He had a primary too. Just recently, he had a primary too. Let me see. This is 2020. 82% of the primary vote. You want me to keep going? I can. I'll stop. But I could talk about Mitt Romney's primary results in Utah. Tom Tillis, John Thune, our most despicable GOP senators come from the reddest states in the United States of America, and they come from those red states because GOP primary voters are lazy and stupid. And I'm sick to death of it. I'm sick to death of the GOP primary voter running to the polls, voting for what's failed time and time again, and then waking up one day and looking at the news and seeing there's an amnesty bill and looking around saying, what? How did this happen? How did it happen? You sat on your butt on primary day. That's how it happened. Or even worse, you ran out to the guy. Oh, I see James Lankford on the news. Hey, he's awesome, right? Herb Lankford again. We'll vote for the R. And we look around, wonder, who did this to us? Grab a mirror. That's who did this to us. Look, I saw, everyone's mad about the Ilhan Omar comments this weekend. Let's talk about this real quick.
jawaabteedu waxay ahayd dawladda Mareykanka waxay ka qabanaysaa wixii annaga aan dhahno dawladda Mareykanka qabo waa kalsoonidaas inaan isku qabno annaga Soomaali hadii aan nahay wadankan annaga ku nool.
Oh my gosh, how could we have somebody in there who's loyal to another country? Well, GOP primary voter has this in common with the people who elected her. They all get exactly what they deserve. I'm tired of the complaining. I'm tired of blaming these useless senators on our side. We deserve representatives like Ilhan Omar. We do. She's an accurate reflection of who we are. We deserve senators like Senator Naked Kendall. We deserve them. We are blessed to live in a country where if we care enough, we can get off our butts and go do something, and we don't. Time and time again, we don't. And then we look around one day, maybe Trump can save us. Nothing, nobody can save a people who don't care enough to save themselves. Maybe that made you uncomfortable too, but I am right. There's a clip going around of a Thomas Jefferson statue being removed from New York City. Everyone's mad about it. I'm mad about it. You're mad about it. Everyone's mad about it. Now, keep in mind, this clip's like 3 years old. It's from 2021. But New York City's removing a statue of Thomas Jefferson. Okay? Let's start zooming out till we get that 30,000-foot view. Why is the communist removing a Thomas Jefferson statue from New York City. Well, the communist is removing a Thomas Jefferson statue from New York City because after St. George Floyd died, he saw an opportunity. An opportunity to do what? To destroy your history. Now, we've covered this before on the show. We will cover it many times again. I covered it in the Anti-Communist Manifesto, available at jessekellybook.com. I covered it extensively. I'm kidding, but I did. I covered it extensively. The communist has done something in every country he's ever conquered. Every country. In the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was obviously Russia before that. Had this long, amazing history. Obviously, a lot of dark, a lot of amazing. They had czars and wars, the Mongols, the Golden Horde. There was crazy history in Russia. The Bolsheviks win. The Bolsheviks take over. All of a sudden, old buildings are being torn down. Statues being torn down. Streets being renamed. It used to be Tsar Nicholas II Avenue. Now it's Vladimir Lenin Boulevard. China, Mao takes over. Kicks off a cultural revolution. Now, I'm loath to compliment China because of how much I hate the Chi-Coms today, but any history fan would know that China has insane amounts of history. Virtually any period of time throughout history, you go to China, crazy cool stuff there, amazing advanced technologies and philosophers, Confucius and statues, and crazy history in China. Mao has a cultural revolution. They were burning old documents. Speaking of Confucius, 2,000 years old, they went and found his graves. There was a huge monument to him, and they tore it all up, destroyed it all. It's gone now. Destroying everything. Now, why? Why? Because your history, you as an individual, you as a citizen of a nation, your history, it's not a story you read about in the past. It's part of your DNA. It's woven into the makeup of who you are. What's a good way I can describe this? You have an upbringing of some kind. Maybe you had a two-parent home. Maybe things got bad. Maybe it was a broken home. Maybe you were a foster kid, whatever it is. But your upbringing, whether it's parents, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's a mix of both, which that's probably everybody. If you look at yourself today, you can easily, everyone of any age, they can look back on their past and see how it has woven into who they are today. The same thing works as a nation. A nation talks about its history. It's good, it's bad, it's anything. A nation puts up monuments, statues, buildings, honoring its history because it's important for people today to remember who we are, remember our founding. That way we can remember what we're supposed to be. The communist knows this. And so the communist destroys it. That's why he burns it down. Pol Pot did it differently when he took over Cambodia. He famously declared it was year zero, that nothing that came before mattered. It was all gone. Now it was only a future. So back to what we were talking about. Thomas Jefferson statue in New York, it gets removed. Why did it end up getting removed? Because after St. George Floyd died, the American communists, there are many, they saw an opportunity. They didn't care about some dead drug dealer in Minneapolis. They saw an opportunity. They saw weakness from the right, and they knew they had an opportunity. So how did they begin? You remember how it began? Robert E. Lee, the Confederate statues, of course. Now, why did they begin there? Is it because the American communist sits around and frets about the Civil War? Oh my gosh, the Civil War. Is it because they actually have some kind of emotion about the Confederacy? Do you think a single American communist today has an emotional response when they're talking about the Confederacy? They don't. They don't care. Was it about race? No, it wasn't. The reason they went after the Confederate statues first is they knew the American right was so feminized and neutered that they wouldn't defend them. And they knew once they began with the Confederate statues, they could then just snowball it and start wrecking everything. And of course they did. It was started out with Robert E. Lee. Quickly, it was Christopher Columbus, Thomas Jefferson, you name it. That's why communists tear down statues, tear down paintings, rewrite history books. It's why in Stamford, Connecticut today, the Board of Education, actually I think this was yesterday, just voted to remove Columbus Day entirely and Veterans Day. Oh, how could they do that? Why would they do that? Because if you're an American child, you're being raised, you're being taught, you have to learn about your culture, you have to learn about your history. If you're learning about Columbus, the discovery of your country, if you're learning about Veterans Day, the warriors who fight for this nation, that might end up becoming part of your DNA. You might look on your country and like it. The communists, the American communist, can't have that. He hates this country. He wants to burn it down. He understands you don't want him to burn it down. So what he needs to weaken your resolve. He needs to weaken your resolve to the point that maybe even you'll help him burn it down. That's why these people even went after professional sports.
Columbus, I mean, he initiated a New World genocide. That's what he did. He took slaves, he mutilated, he murdered, and they're gonna say slash and honor him.
Oh, Jesse, I just want to watch sports. Why won't they let me watch sports? The communist doesn't see worlds that he wants to avoid conquering. He knows you just want to watch sports. That's why he wormed his way into losers like that, so he can get them sharing his message, destroying your DNA, bad-mouthing your history, bad-mouthing your history, bad-mouthing your history. You understand that when it comes to races, when it comes to political races, whatever those races may be, there's the story the public sees, and then there's the story behind the story. Here's what I mean. Right now, obviously, a lot of people are focused on the presidential race in 2024. It's Trump versus Biden. It's all these other things. And here's what normal people do. You don't do this, but here's what normal people do. Well, Joe Biden, his economic views are unpopular, and his border views are unpopular. So he's probably in trouble. But you follow politics. There's always a story behind the story. And one of the ugly things about politics, one of the worst things about politics, is money. Now, let me pause there for a moment. Just because it's ugly and horrible doesn't mean it's ever going to go away. So don't ever say, ever, definitely don't say it to me, let's get the money out of politics. What? You're never going to get the money out of politics. Money's been in politics since the tribes were electing their local chieftain and you had to buy someone an extra cow to get their vote. Money is involved in politics and it ain't ever going to change no matter what you do. The amount of money these candidates raise matters. Now, why does money matter in politics? Let's be clear about this. Well, if everyone was like you, it wouldn't matter. What do I mean by like you? You're informed. You're an informed voter. You're sitting here right now watching me on the First TV. You have options today, endless options. Flipping through your television, anything on your phone, endless options. You're watching me. You're hyper-informed. The money they raise is not for you. You're going to know the issues. You're going to know the candidates. I don't need to come. If I'm running for office, I don't need to run a TV commercial during the football game you're watching. You already know me. You know the enemy. You know it. This is for the people who actually decide elections. These weird people I don't understand. Maybe you understand them. I never have. These independents, I voted for Obama twice, and then I voted for Trump the first time, but then I voted for Biden. These are real people. These people actually exist. That's who the money is for. This person is not hyper-informed. These are low-info voters. They vote on how they feel. They vote on the television ads they see, the online ads they see. That's what the money's for. Joe Biden has a super PAC. I saw this. This is one of those things that went right by everybody. It did not go right by me. They just made the largest ad purchase in the history, of television, I guess I should say. I was about to say in the history of the country, but I guess that would predate things. Anyway, in the history of the country. the largest ad purchase. And so this is why I tend to be dismissive when people say, Jesse, American people aren't going to vote in Joe Biden again. I mean, after all, he can't even talk.
The beer brewed here, it is used to make the brew beer in this refinery. Oh, Earth Rider, thanks for the Great Lakes. I wonder why he's trying.
What? I made you. What? And look, everyone knows Joe Biden can't function. And yes, there are concerns in Democrat circles about Biden. They know they can't go to Dome. A lot of you have seen this undercover video from James O'Keefe.
I work at the White House.
So you're pretty high up in the government.
Yeah, I'm fairly high up. I'm good at keeping secrets, and so I manage 2 federal agencies, the State Department and USAID.
Is he going to be the nominee?
Yes. And she will be the vice president nominee.
Yeah, I don't...
There was a debate about removing her from the ticket, but sadly they didn't. She can't keep black staff. They quit on her in mass.
But with him, I mean,
I know.
He's got dementia.
Yeah, well, he's definitely slowing down.
But they won't say it. Well, I guess if they say it publicly,
correct.
that Biden is they can't say it publicly.
No, they've got it. They got to
Do
toe
they
the
say it
line.
privately?
I'm just telling you what I've heard. Like,
You're just telling me the truth.
Does it make sense? No, but that's what I've heard.
And
I've had a meeting with Michelle Obama at one point when I was an intern, and someone asked her, will you ever run for office? And she said no, emphatically.
Really?
I've seen all the shit my husband has had to go through, and that does not interest me.
Yeah. One, funniest part of that video is the dude who's on video spilling all the tea, bragging in the beginning that he's the one in charge of keeping secrets. Anyway, let's talk about this. Yes, Joe Biden can't talk. Yes, they've had talks about removing him. But Democrats have a machine in place, a political machine in place. They have the money. They have the organization. And a guy can deny it all he wants. Michelle Obama is starting to make noise. She is starting to be more vocal. She's appearing on podcasts. Every other day there's an article here. And we now know, because of these weird DNC rules, they can go through their entire primary process, and they very clearly are. And then for whatever reason Joe Biden decides to resign before the convention, they can then just nominate whoever they please at the convention. And the thing about that is all that money, all that organization, the volunteers, the everything, it's just kind of plug and play for Michelle. Joe Biden may be old and non-functional and crappy, but that brings us to this. The American people, pains me to say it, they like Michelle Obama. I do not. I despise that America-hating hag. But the American people, they don't know that about her. You know that about her. You're hyper-informed. You understand who she is. You understand how awful she is. You understand all that. But the regular people who decide elections do not. Whether it's Joe Biden or whether they plug into Michelle Obama, I have concerns about some of the basic structure of 2024. They have so much more money than us, and they're so much better organized. That's why I don't look at all the new polls that come out. Biden's down 5, and I don't get giddy and start clapping. I hope they're right? I hope everything works out. I don't know. And I think about how voters don't learn lessons. They really, truly don't. Voters, human beings, we're famous for divorcing our choices from the results of those choices. You see this guy, Brandon Johnson, in Chicago? Chicago's an absolute war zone. It's a war zone in and of itself. They're passing ceasefire resolutions for Israel.
But at this point now, I believe we're looking at 25,000 Palestinians that have been killed during this war, and the killing has to stop. So, yes, we need a ceasefire.
Here's the thing. He's going to be reelected. Remember, I make mistakes every election cycle, and I'm not going to make it this election cycle. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I want to make sure you know the mistake I make every time, because maybe you make the same mistake. I sit back and I look at the horror of the Democrats. I hate Republicans too, you know that, but Democrats really are evil now in this country. What they push is it's really gross. It's really evil. And I say to myself, man, the American people, they're going to reject this. They've had enough of this. Yeah. Remember that red wave we were supposed to have? 2022. Remember the red wave that turned into the red drip? I don't know that the American people are going to be able to withstand the ad buy money because, let's be honest, you voted for this campaign we're on. We're on the campaign because people don't know. They don't take ownership of their vote. Are they going to take ownership and vote the opposite way next time? I don't know. I hope so. I'll believe it when I see it. Oh, that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right.